Hey guys.
Welcome back. We're going to be talking about how to ask your boss for a raise.
Yes, we've been exploring these influencing principles. Previous episodes, we talked about how to get out of that zone of manipulation into the zone of influence. But once you're in that zone of influence, how do you stay there? What are some principles? We go through GLOW again. More on that when you go into the episode. But that 3 steps to stay in the zone of influence. But here, specifically in the context of how do you approach your boss for a conversation about getting a raise. All right?
Yep.
Often awkward, doesn't have to be. It can be something that's very empowering for both you and your boss, so you can walk away with a collective goal and find ways that are maybe even innovative ways on how to ask for that raise.
Yeah, and if you can learn like the science of influence in this scenario, imagine how many other places you can use it.
Cool.
So, really excited to share this with you. This was a fun one to do. And so, coming from our experience as bosses and having asked for raises in the past, we kind of see both sides. So, it's going to be really fun. All right. Join us in there. Bye.
See you in there. Hey, welcome back.
Welcome.
Come on, you influencers. We're going to be talking about how you can make a little bit more money today. Yeah. Okay. By asking for a raise in a way that is considerate and loving of your boss. So we've been talking a lot about influencing recently. And previous episodes, we're talking about how do we get out of that zone of manipulation. That's where we're not really honoring somebody's freedom.
Yeah.
We're trying to change their thoughts, feelings, and actions, but we're not really doing it in a way that honors their freedom, their agency, right? Influence still tries to change people's thoughts, feelings, and actions, but does it in a way that is inviting, always conscious that they can have their own free will.
Yep.
They get to choose. They have their own greatest good in mind.
And it's coming from an element of self-gift. It's pouring into the person.
Yes.
But it does require you to know if that person is open and willing and able and ready to receive that gift that you have.
Yes.
And so, so we can manipulate in a lot of different ways, and we have an entire series on that. But we always require the person, before we give any type of influencing tactics, to do their own work first, to actually understand, am I manipulating this person?
Yes. Am I operating from a place of fear?
Yeah.
Right? Fear is often behind, or always behind, manipulation, right?
Yes.
And so we have to fear. We try to control something. We try to control things that are not outside of our control. All right. It's going to lead to manipulation. And if this is the mindset that we approach asking our boss for a raise, which is what we're going to be talking about today, I don't think I'm a boss. I don't like feeling manipulated during those conversations, but I'm happy to feel influenced. I'm happy to have somebody that is giving me good information, that's helping me to make a good informed decision that's in keeping with the greatest good of my company.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to be following that same format that we introduced the last 2 episodes. We did some parenting focus. Now we're going to be doing a little bit more of a workplace focus here based on some questions that continue to come in, questions that people ask us, common life situations. So we're going to be talking about today, how do you stay in that zone of influence while asking your boss for a raise?
And this actually, the nuances are a little bit different here because you're dealing with other adults, completely rational adults versus children, and children that you are responsible for to a certain point. And so there is a different nuance here. And what I like about this, it's a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
Because there aren't all of those what am I responsible for? What am I not? This is very clean. You are responsible for your own work and this other person is responsible for their own work.
Yeah.
In this case, it gets a little bit, and we talked about all those distinctions in the last 2 about parenting, but it does get a little bit more complicated. Okay, so how am I helping mold them and shape them? But in this way, I like how simple this is. How much more simpler. I have had, I don't know how to talk today.
Yeah, we'll get you a little Mylan. We'll get you a little, make you have a sip of my bulletproof coffee here if you'd like.
Thank you.
There you go. All
Cheers.
Right. Cheers. Okay. So there's certain ways, maybe you're listening in and you've approached your boss for a raise at some point and you felt like your hat is in your hand as you're going into the office or entering into the conversation, or that you've got to have some sort of power play or upper hand or ultimatum that goes into this. All of these things are kind of more zone of manipulation tactics, right? Nobody really feels very powerful, right? It puts you more in a place of powerlessness. And here's the reality. Being in the zone of influence is the surest way to get what you want. Ultimately, all right? And what you want is not just external compliance, but internal compliance of the other person that you're trying to influence. That has the greatest long-term effect. And it actually is something that improves the relationship in the process.
And I think one reason why people go to that zone of manipulation, and like we said, there's like a lot of things that are well intended, and we do that anyway. We go into the zone of manipulation, but I think it's because it's easier. Like you don't have to wait. You don't have to learn about the person. You don't have to really love them. You can go in and like try to control it. Like when Matt's saying powerful, we're also not saying you go in and you like kick over a chair and you're like, listen to me. That is not what we're talking about either. It's this internal self-will, like this ability to think through these things and to choose and to articulate and communicate this with somebody who you have a collective goal with.
Yes, a collective goal, a common goal.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about how we apply these principles of GLOW, right? Principle one is, or step one is you get that common goal.
Yeah.
And then we go to lessening the trigger conditions for the person, your boss here that you're asking for the raise, but also optimizing their ideal conditions, right? So GLOW, goal, lessen the trigger conditions, which put people in a place of fear, and then optimize the ideal conditions which allow them to stay in their place of contribution. And all of this stuff, again, GLOW maximizes people's agency and maximizes their ability to show up and make free will choices here. I remember going in and asking for raises in the past, and it was always just very uncomfortable for me to do that. I remember it would be like months, Aaron, that you and I would be talking about this at home, and there would be all this justification, but I never actually did the work. I would go in and I would feel almost like apologetic, but also assuming this victim-y kind of posture as well, where it's just like, I'm powerless to be able to do anything that impacts my finances. So the presumption behind this here, folks, is that when we take responsibility for the work that we're doing and the contributions that we're making, we really can write our own ticket for what we're making. Within some boundaries here. I mean, it's not you snap your fingers and people meet your demands, but we're going to talk here a little bit up front on how you can actually make yourself a greater asset that warrants a raise. And maybe we can move right into that first here because
let's do that.
Because this is the thing, you are unique and unrepeatable. All of us are. We're equal in dignity. We have great worth in the eyes of God, all right? And we are irreplaceable as human persons. Doesn't mean that we're irreplaceable as employees. So, okay.
Yeah. Right. And also because your boss doesn't hire you because you're unique and everything like that. The boss is hiring you to get a job done, right? And they want to find out, okay, are all of your unique set of skills aligned with the job that I need to get done?
And you're performing also to get the job
And so
done.
when you're going in, I actually just heard a coaching call too, and I'll take 2 minutes to explain this. It was really interesting. I just heard a coaching call this morning about this, and somebody was like, but don't I want to be authentic in my job interview?
I remember this one.
And the coach was like, well, yeah, you can be authentic, but that's not why you're there. They're not like, oh, I'm just so happy that you're authentic. Obviously don't lie and don't be out of integrity, but that's not can you get the job done? Can you actually do the job and help the company grow, which is why they're hiring you.
Right.
It's not doing it for authenticity's sake.
Yes.
And so I think that's actually really helpful to know. For me anyway, I think it's a really good distinction there.
Yeah. And when you can operate in a place where you're in
bold.
integrity with your unique design, and so you're showing up at your job, being able to do what you do best. And oh, by the way, what you do best is also what the company is looking for and what the company sees as valuable. That's a win-win situation. Okay.
It's a good match right there.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
And we help you do that, by the way. Sorry. but we help you do that. We help you
Yes.
discover those good matches.
Yes. Okay. So does your skill level make you an asset? That's one of the questions. I remember listening to Tony Robbins a couple of months ago. He had he was talking about the changes in the workplace and how much automation is coming into it. And he said, hey, if you're an unskilled worker, now is the time to start investing in a skill, because sooner or later you're just not going to have a job. And it doesn't mean that you don't have the dignity to have a job. It just means that the reality is, like,
there's machines doing your work.
There are machines doing your work. What you have to offer can be done cheaper by an automation, and arguably better by automation. And so that doesn't mean that you have to go on strike and demand that, machines aren't coming in here, but rather it's like, what are you going to do to reinvest in yourself and make yourself an asset for the company? And so this is something I put first on everybody, is like, when you want to go and ask for the raise, how have you made yourself an asset to the company? So companies, I can tell you as a boss, we protect our assets.
Yeah.
All right. The assets are those things that we can't do without. They're actually they're giving us a greater return than the investment that we're putting into them. Right. So they've made themselves essential. So that's a good. How have you made yourself an asset and made it very hard for you to be replaced? Make yourself a unicorn. Okay. The other thing to consider here before going in is do you save the company money in what you do? Do you do the job of two people, right? Do you have a skill set that where if they would have to hire two people
or
to
replace
do
you,
your job, right? Now, that doesn't mean that you demand the job of two people, because guess what? Like, if you demand the pay of two people, is what can happen is the boss just says, you know what? I'll just go hire two people, right? But you're giving the boss a little bit of an idea of like, hey, you're saving money with me. I'm expanding my skill set, and that's something that I'd like to hear.
Yeah,
is like, this is what I've done to actually make myself an asset, expand my skill set, and oh, by the way, it happens to correlate with saving the company money here.
And here's how I've saved you money too.
Yes.
Here are like the facts.
Yes. The other thing to consider here is making money really the solution for you? Making more money, is that really the solution? So consider the why behind your raise, right? Not that every single time you go and you ask for a raise, it's being motivated by greed, right? Or to desire a certain quality of life or standard of living is automatically vainglorious if it's just above the poverty level, right? So like it's okay to desire these things.
I will, yeah,
and it's be very, very conscious of just how much you really need. And the reason why I say that is because when you haven't done this work, as soon as there's a little pushback in the negotiation, you haven't really set a bottom line for yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And so the goal is for you to show up in conviction. Is that something that's that's part of showing up in a place of power, maximizing your power. And again, it's not overpowering, but showing up. No, I've done this work. I've done this consideration. There's conviction that's there.
Yeah. I like that question. Is making money like really the solution? Is making money really solving the problem? Because here's the thing, like, money doesn't solve every problem. If you're not doing your mindset work, if you're not actually realizing, I'm not really good at handling my money. I'm not really good at managing my money. Like, so making more money is not solving that problem. Like, going and finding how to manage your money is solving that problem.
Yeah.
Or like taking a course on how to manage your money. It does solve money problems, though. Money solves money problems.
Yep.
And so, and just to have that distinction in your mind going into it and owning what's yours in that space. Like, hey, I know I can probably work in this area. Right. And so I think that's a big piece here.
But this is even stuff that Aaron and I, as owners of the company, and I imagine other owners of the company, we think through these things ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, because we're in charge of whether or not we get a raise in the company. So we get paid salary in the company, same as our other full-time employees. So if we're taking some sort of a distribution or we are asking for a raise, that's not our money. That's the company's money, right? So how are we justifying more coming out of the company for us? Like, what's our piece behind that? And so even the way that we've given ourselves raises recently is more on a commission basis for the work that we're doing, which is something that is one of the easiest ways, folks, to be able to go and if you're going to ask for a raise, if you can tie it to, hey, it's more revenue coming in and I just want a portion of that revenue, that's fine. Like that's not adding overhead to the company.
Correct.
It's adding production to the company,
Yeah.
and it's adding revenue to the company. And then there's just kind of a little piece that you're taking there. So it's easier, I can tell you, when you can approach it saying, I want to increase based on production, not just increase base. Increasing base increases overhead, and that money's got to come from someplace. Okay. Finally here, something to consider. If you're going in and asking for a raise, does the company or that you're working for already have some sort of protocol for when these conversations happen? Is there an annual review process where once a year you are reviewed for a raise? Okay. If that's the case and you're operating outside of that protocol, be prepared to justify
Why.
All right. You probably need a big reason to justify why this is necessary.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we always love considering unique design. So we're going to be going through this process of GLOW, right? The arrive at the goal, lessen the trigger conditions, optimize the ideal conditions, all this considering the other person that you're seeking to influence, in this case, a boss to give you a raise. And we're going to go through the different temperaments. So considering if your boss was choleric, if your boss will go through GLOW with that, sanguine, phlegmatic, and melancholic here. So excited.
Yeah.
Ready to rock?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Let's start with the choleric.
Yeah.
All right. So in this G step of GLOW, we know we're trying to find a common goal that both people can willingly pursue together.
We know the person. So if you're the person going and asking for a raise, we know what your goal is, or you got to do the work to figure out what that is. But we know the end result is to get higher, like to get paid more, right? But you want to ask, what is this person's choleric boss? What is it that they want? What are the results that they want? You know, here's the thing. They probably haven't started the business because it's fun. They started a business for a lot of different reasons, and they want to grow that business. They want to make a great impact. And so these are some words that actually like cholerics like to rest in: results, productivity, impact, efficiency. And so you want to kind of ask yourself, what is it that they want? This requires you to know this person and to get curious and to love them and really figure out what is it that they want. It's not about you. I hate to say it. It's about a collective goal. So there's two people involved here.
Yeah, and we're not asking you to sneak a temperaments assessment into your like boss's inbox.
But you could probably guess.
These things, there's one. You got a 25% chance of guessing it, and if they're choleric, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
So, all right. So like certain things, like I'm a choleric. All right. So, like Aaron said, I have no problem giving raises, but I want to know how this raise is going to be an investment into the company that's going to bring back more efficiency, right?
Yep.
There's a motivating word for cholerics. And a lot of these, just so you know, guys, a lot of these goals, these words that we're using, we pull these from our temperaments workshop in the motivation category for the cholerics. So I know I'm motivated by efficiency. So even if somebody is asking not only for a raise, but just an increase in the budget, right? Or they want to make an investment in another asset or software or vendor for the company, to be able to couch that and present that in terms of efficiency being we're going to be able to move faster.
Yeah. Quick results.
We're going to be able to get more done in less amount of time. Like this is how this investment that you're making is going to give you some sort of return.
Yeah.
That's something that speaks to me pretty well. Winning is also one of those terms and it's funny because I'm low in competition in terms of like my strengths finder, but it's kind of creeping up there, especially as we've been operating a little bit longer here. But I love to find win-win-win situations. Win-win-win, wins for me, wins for you, wins for our clients, right? So how can you present this as a win-win-win situation?
Yeah, like everybody's winning from this. I think just clear and effective results and tangible results, like factual results. Like here's how I know, and here's how I'm going to measure this. Like as your employee, here's how I know, like I'm going to choose this strategy. We're going to try this. Then we're going to pause. And then we're going to recollect, or reflect and say, like, do we need to shift? Like that for a choleric, I imagine that is like, all right, yeah, like, okay, you have a plan.
Well, yeah, and this doesn't mean that you have to show up with like, here's a new thing that I'm going to be doing to make the company operate better. guys, there's plenty of times where we're doing things behind the scenes and our bosses have no idea, but it's making an impact on the company. It's helping the company to win. So even being able to show up to that conversation and be like, hey, with the brag sheet, and I know you may not feel comfortable with this, but the brag sheet is not about you bragging. It's about you sharing with the boss
your contributions,
why you're an asset to the company. Again, bosses, like we invest in our assets because our assets aren't overhead. They give a return. Okay. So think about like even making investments in banking or things like that. An asset is something that gives you some sort of return on your investment. It's worthwhile. You protect those things and you invest in them.
So how would somebody say that? How would they approach a choleric boss? Like kind of say the goal or like insinuate the goal.
What I would love to do is if somebody came in and said like, hey, this is the job description, this is the job that you've asked me to do, and this is me going above and beyond the job that you've actually asked me to do and giving me objective evidence.
And this is how I've saved you time.
Showing me how you save time, money, yes, yep. Those things.
Resources.
Like that's where it's just like, okay, what's happening in my head is like, all right, it would really suck if this person left. Like I would be in a pinch. I'd have to find a unicorn to replace this person, or it'd be very difficult to replace this person. It'd be very difficult to even cross train people to cover down on this person. So again, you're showing up and you're building yourself up as an asset, and that's the goal of that brag sheet. Not to just be like, look at me, but it's the reality of you're presenting the reality of what you're contributing to the company.
Okay. So for a choleric, let's move on to the lessening the triggers,
okay.
Right?
Yep.
What are some triggers for the choleric and how can somebody lessen them?
Okay. So a big one here is I don't want to feel powerless as a choleric boss.
Okay.
So I don't want to feel like I'm backed into the corner. There's some sort of ultimatum. It's like, if you don't do this, then I walk. It's like, sayonara, see ya. Like that is not going to be something where
you're writing your resignation letter in that moment.
Yeah. It's probably not the best way. So what can you do? That's one way. The second thing that's a trigger condition here is like, I don't want to feel stupid.
As the choleric boss?
As the boss, as a choleric boss.
Okay, so first one is like no demands or ultimatums.
Yep.
Okay.
It's just like don't put me in a position where I feel powerless.
Okay. So no, and then the second one is, what was it?
It's I don't want to feel stupid. Like
okay.
Don't show up with like where you're sharing information with me and presuming that I haven't considered it before, right? Like always, if you're sharing new information, give them the benefit of the doubt that they already know this. I mean, and it could just be as simple as some of the language of like, hey, and this is something you may know this already. I've looked into this recently. And this is, if there's some sort of education that you're giving, that's something good. I wouldn't necessarily say, hey, I did some digging around and I saw the comps for this position are X, Y, and Z over here, and you're paying me minus that. Because
it's probably not a good approach.
I mean, it's just like I used to use that approach.
Yeah.
And I remember my boss would just be like, that's not how we do it here.
Yeah.
Sorry. And so, and he had a little bit of cleric in him. So, that's, I would never say print off Indeed.com and, things that they consider, right? That's for your own research. And that's certainly something that bosses will do on their own. Okay. So that's like, don't want to feel stupid. Don't want to feel, powerless, right?
Yeah.
And powerless is just like there's some sort of ultimatum.
Yeah.
That's being put on.
Things to not do. Yes. Okay. First of all, what do we do? What are the ideal conditions? How do we optimize the ideal conditions for the choleric boss to receive your request?
Yeah, I put in here first, like sitting in the tiny chair.
What does that mean?
Well, it's not necessarily the case, but I think of George Bailey going and sitting in Mr. Potter's office and just being like
the teeny tiny chair.
But like it's just going in with humility, right? And cholerics really value. I mean, everybody values trust and loyalty and obedience. I'd say even that's heavy in the melancholic side here. So, but I would say like making sure that it's clear, like I know this is ultimately up to you, right? So clerics are good at making decisions. They don't feel overwhelmed by making decisions. And so just even say like, ultimately, I know this decision is up to you guys, right? And we know as clerics what decision is yours. And that decision is whether or not you stay or whether or not you say yes to the offer or the counter offer, whatever it is that I put in front of you. Okay. So just even being able to say, ultimately this is up to you. Okay. But also there's like,
give them the decision back, which is theirs anyway.
Yes.
Give them the decision that's already theirs back to them.
Yes, exactly. And then just like being frank is also, and straight and to the point, this is also an ideal condition for the cleric. So it's like, I want the information to help me make the decision. But
don't waste my time.
Yeah, I don't want a whole book behind the scenes of all of the struggles that are happening. Maybe some of that information is important.
I think,
but just be frank, and be like, hey, this is what I'm here. This is what I hope to really accomplish with this meeting. That's something where it's like, okay, great. We all know what the goal is and how to show up.
The end goal, the end result of that meeting. I would add one more thing here, and it's kind of, you already alluded to it, but it's almost like make them, you can't make somebody feel smart, but compliment them in hiring you in the first place. And this is where that brag sheet comes in. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you did great job in hiring me because I did all these things. And
I love working at this company.
And I've saved you all this money and I love the culture. And I'm not saying don't lie. If you don't like any of those things, maybe you need to go look for another job that pays you higher, pays you more. But if that is the case, tell them, remind them that hey, you made a good decision already in me. And I'm just asking you to invest some more into me. And here's what I'll give to you. In exchange for that.
Yeah. So clear success measurements, that's another piece. So it's like, how do we empower the person? How do we be frank and to the point, knowing that their contribution is that they make good decisions and they can make quick decisions.
Yeah.
But then also clear success measurements. I mean, don't go in there and be like, hey, I want to raise, what do you think? Go in there and say, even being able to say, this is the mark that I'm working towards.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, I'm making, $100K right now. I really want to find a way to get to 120 or 110 or something like that. And that's a clear success goal. And even I want to find a way. There's a lot of different ways that can happen. There's commissions, there's bonuses, there's profit sharing, there's other, benefits that can come that way, health benefits. There's maybe even some investments where people can invest in your training investments that are happening that are creating even as a greater asset to the company, or before you just do a bump in the base.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, let's go on to sanguine.
Let's do it.
The sanguine boss. So
you're going to be the litmus test here, Aaron, as the sanguine at the table. Okay. So I thought if I'm approaching a sanguine boss, I might say how can I make things simple, right? It's it's just considering how this conversation could be something which can at times be an uncomfortable conversation. You're going into it because you're not satisfied with your current wage, right? So,
what are other words you could use to kind of go in and consider what does a sanguine want to rest in?
What's going to motivate them to participate in this conversation?
Yes, motivate them to actually consider even giving you a raise, but also what are the things that a sanguine wants?
I think they enjoy creativity. I think they enjoy coming up with new solutions to things and creative ways. They're innovative. Yes.
They're productive in that way. There's that creativity, that production, that innovation. They also love to collaborate with people.
Yes.
So even if it is suggested hey, we both have this goal, can you work with me on this?
Yeah.
It's not I have this plan already and it goes and it looks like this and it's super rigid. It's
no collaborating involved there.
Yeah.
It's I've done all the work. You just say yes or no.
Yeah. Can you collaborate with me? But also they want the culture of the workplace to be simple and positive and life-giving and abundant and optimistic. So these are kind of here's how we can get there. Here's how we can get to that culture of the workplace.
Yes. Yeah. So even going in there, it's like, okay, what's the common goal here in Glow that we're trying to establish for the Sanguine? It might be like, hey, a goal that we can both agree on is coming up with a creative solution on how I can earn more in the company, right? And maybe it's like a creative solution
and
without
I can create more.
how I can create more, how I can create more value for the company. And this is something where it's like that in all of these conversations, folks, it's okay to ask, how can I create more value? Because if somebody says like, hey, it's not, we don't have the money for a raise, it's like, okay, well, how can I create situations here in the company where I can,
if I could create a product,
if I can create a product, if I can create
that will bring
a
in money
solution for you, let's come up with a creative solution and how I can either reduce the overhead of the company and save the company money, and then I can get a little bit of that of the savings that are in that, or ways that I can, just produce more. Right?
Yes.
I remember the Koch brothers. One of the things that they did was they said if there was an employee that came up with a solution for how to save money for the company, didn't matter what level employee. I think it was something like they would give the employee half of the annual savings that solution created.
Wow.
So if it was $1 million savings that they created, they would write
I actually
a
love that.
$500,000 check for that employee. This is like, great. Like, we're going to save that money year over year.
Yeah.
We're happy to do that. And so what that did was it just created
it just for that 1 year? That first year?
It was just, just that 1 year. So it was
cool.
it was a way that drove
innovation
in the employees to be like, okay, how can we save some money here and come up with some creative solutions?
Yeah, I love
What's that do for your Sanguine?
Oh my gosh, that's like so exciting to me. I'm like, that is so cool. That's how we do all of our payments from now on. No, I'm just kidding.
Everybody starts at zero until you find ways to save money.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so lessening the trigger conditions for the Sanguine. What are some trigger conditions here that could come up in these conversations, Erin?
Approaching it from a place of negativity. Like, here are all the problems that you need to fix for me. Or like making it just like more about you than about the company. Like, they're a boss of a company. You're not the only employee, you know? And if you're just coming with problems without having thought through solutions ahead of time, what does that tell your Sanguine boss who really, really values solution and innovative thinking? It tells them, man, have we hired the right person here? Why aren't you coming up with solutions yet? I think that's kind of the way that I would think about it.
Yeah. You want something that's going to, like, Sanguines are naturally hopeful people, and negativity can often like be is counter to that hopeful nature of the Sanguine.
Yes.
And so like always being able to, if you're presenting kind of the negative side of things, always presenting it with like the hopeful solution, right? The hopeful way, like keep
equal airtime.
Keep the conversation hopeful. All right. And that's going to be kind of one of the things that moves on to here, optimize the ideal conditions for the Sanguine. Keep the conversation hopeful. What else, Erin?
A trigger, another trigger.
No, well, is there another trigger, or do you want to jump into optimizing?
Yeah. I think just keeping options open too, and be don't like close the book on like, oh, this is like the one way. Kind of like what I said, like don't like be like, this is the only way we're gonna do this, and like here are all my parameters. And you're like, well, okay, you're not the boss, first of all. And it sounds like a you problem. Like, this is exactly what I would think in my mind. And so I'm like, go do whatever. Go do your own work on this first, and then come up with 5 solutions. And next time, don't present me with just problems.
Yep.
That would be it. Yep.
Okay. So if we go into optimizing our ideal conditions, one of those things could be, again, opportunities for creative problem solving. This is a contribution like of the Sanguine. All right. So approaching this as an opportunity for creative problem solving is going to allow them to show up with their innovative best self to this. And that might like show up. It doesn't mean that you show up without anything and be like, hey, let's brainstorm. But it's better to show up and say, hey, I've I'm looking for a raise. I've done some preliminary considerations on what some innovative ways and how we might be able to do this. All right. And I want to get your input on it, but like, these are 3 ways that I think that I can add more value to the company or save the company money and therefore justify this raise a little bit more.
Let's talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like, let's talk. Like, I'm so much more open to that, because it's like, also like, here's how we all, it's very much like the cleric, but like here's how we all win, but from what the sanguine wants. Like, I think as a boss who is in charge of a coaching company, I'm not in charge of a creative company, but I have to be to be a growing company, you have to be innovative. You have to be always moving and being agile in that space. And so I'm thinking, I'm not doing a good job as a boss if I have people working under me who are not coming up with solutions to things ahead of time and presenting them to me with that. So like, it does go internal a little bit. It's like, oh, wait, okay. Like, do I have to teach you an entire lesson of how to think about this? Right. And that's also draining to the sanguine.
Yes. Yeah. Another ideal condition for the sanguine boss could be just knowing that they are open to doing things a new way. All right. So this is something where it could be helpful for you to share that openness and even be able to approach the conversation where it's like, hey, I'm open to getting creative and doing something that's outside of the box with this. And again, lean into that a little bit yourself. And if that's not necessarily your gift, before you talk to your boss, talk to somebody else that does have that as a gift, and be able to say like, hey, you know what? I talk with a friend of mine or a coach, and here are some things that I think could be new ways of doing this. Yeah. Again, new novelty makes the sanguine's heart go pitter pat.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
And innovation. Yep.
All right. Let's apply glow here to the melancholic, considering for the melancholic boss. All right. So common goals. What is motivating to the melancholic? Say ideal. Living the ideal is certainly one of those things. So being conscious and like conscious of the ideal culture that the boss wants, the ideal brand image that the boss wants, the ideal operating conditions that the boss wants, the ideal, I think I said culture of the company already.
I think also just like honesty and integrity. Like, hey, I haven't made this decision yet just because I wanted to be able to share this with you ahead of time, and I want you to be a part of this decision with me. Right? It's that integrity, it's that emotional transparency and honesty.
Yep.
I think there's some type of like, I'm operating in integrity as a boss, that I'm in tune with what's going on in my employees.
Yeah. So like if you know that your boss, say, has an ideal image for how the company is going to interact, right? The employees of the company are going to interact. I think it's important to say how this is going to contribute to that ideal. All right. Or maybe the boss has an ideal way of growing, right? How is this going to contribute to the ideal way that the company is growing, right? One of those ideals, say for example, could be, hey, we're not going to be expanding the team size this year, right? We're gonna find ways to just grow with the people that we have right now. All right. So how do you adopt that ideal for yourself and bring that in to the negotiations where it's like, hey, I know that you have this ideal of being able to have a goal here of growing the company without expanding any of the overhead for the company in terms of new employees that are coming on. All right. Here's an idea that I like, and I've got some ideas in how I can do that. And I also have a goal of being able to meet X, right? Yeah. So always being able to present the go into the conversation with, this is what I am shooting for. Yeah. Right? It's very different from like, this is what I need, or this is what I have to have, but this is what I am going for. This is also something that starts to create an ideal condition even for the melancholic of, having a clear scope to a project, or a clear goal, a clear end state in mind for what you're pursuing.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. So, appeal to the ideal. Lessen those trigger conditions for the melancholic.
Don't make them make a decision right then and there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Melancholics.
Like, I need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. The words need any of like the universal words, I think might be triggering to the melancholic, because they use them a lot in their own mind. Right. So it's like, never.
Well, you always at never. And it's like need. I don't know if need is a universal word, but it's just.
It's a powerless word.
Yes, it's a little heavier.
Yeah.
But I think it's just knowing that the melancholic is going to say, hey, I need some time to consider this. Mm-hmm. And that it's okay to say, I want to give you all the time that you need. Mm-hmm. But also being clear. And what is it? How much time would you say that you need? Because you get to share your needs here as well. It's a conversation. Mm-hmm. Or it's just like, is this something you think that we can revisit in 3 days, or the same time next week with this? Mm-hmm. And being able to just put that out there, and I mean that's okay.
Yeah.
But like, this is even part of creating the ideal conditions for the melancholic, is actually have some deadlines.
Yeah.
It's not always comfortable, but we need them, right? It's my secondary.
Yep.
And we recently learned that deadlines actually increase in adrenaline release towards the due date of that product, or that deadline, which actually helps you to get things done, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you can lessen like the drama around it by like, I remember them teaching us this as hairstylists. They're like, when you go book the person for the next time they're coming in, because they need to get their roots done every 4 weeks, get them in the book that day before they leave, because otherwise they're calling you last minute, and, it's just get them in. And so when you're leaving your melancholic boss, like, hey, I want to give you all the time in the world. Is it like around a week? Because I would love to know. And around a week, could we maybe get that on the schedule? Mm-hmm. And that's like, you don't have to be dramatic about it. You don't have to present it and then walk away and go, I don't know when we're going to talk about it again. That's kind of where we can go. And so just get it on the schedule, make it factual, get it there.
Yeah. So that's another way of optimizing the ideal conditions here. Mm-hmm. The time and space, I think that's one of the greatest gifts that you can give to a melancholic boss, of being able to say, hey, there's time and space. And what this might look like is at the beginning of the conversation, being able to share, hey, this is about, it's a conversation about me sharing with you my goals for compensation. I'm not looking for I know we're not going to make a decision here today. That's fine. I want to, you've got time to make sure that you've got time to consider these things. So just even that is a way of, like, if somebody comes in and says that versus I need to make a decision right now, or something like that, that immediately is going to put me back in my chair and be like closed off, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think another trigger for a melancholic is just that feeling that they quickly go to, I'm a failure.
Yeah.
Right? Like, even as a boss, like, I'm a failure. Like, I failed to like even notice that they needed this raise, or that they weren't doing these things. And so when you're presenting it, to just be like, hey, I know you got a lot on there's other things that you're considering all the time. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to, make this known to you. It means nothing about like your ability to, run this company. It's just kind of, you're presenting it in that way. You're considering that they have probably already considered this, or if they haven't, that they might be like beat themselves up about not considering it. Yeah.
And then feel bad.
So it's just like being sensitive to that.
Sure. Okay. So that's a melancholic here.
Mm-hmm. Wait, did we go to the...
We did some ideal conditions. The time and space is the way of optimizing the ideal conditions. And even just like appealing to... They're high principled people, right? Mm-hmm. And so they have high ideals. They often share their high ideals. Again, the way that you can even approach the conversation appealing to the ideals, maybe it's like, hey, I know that you really value... integrity in the organization.
Don't make it up,
or you
though.
Value transparency in this, and you value loyalty in this. And so this is me, just wanting to be transparent, right, with some of the things that have been going on in my life. Open up the conversation, And then, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Finally, the phlegmatics.
All right. So some of the triggers for the phlegmatics are, I would say, I'm sorry.
But like a common goal.
What's the goal of the phlegmatic?
Start with the G. So
yeah, thanks.
Goal for a phlegmatic boss.
They want to make things easier, more efficient, things that take less effort. They want to maximize things with less effort, honestly. I think that's...
Yeah, and they want to create stability here as well.
And consistency, yeah.
Stability, consistency, fairness is another thing that's often a high ideal or a high value to a phlegmatic, right? And so these are things to appeal to. It's just like, hey, looking for these are some of the things that we're doing. These are some of the things that I'm thinking about doing. These are some things that I'm thinking about doing that could save the company money, make the company more money, and the goal being like fair compensation for those things. Now, be careful when you throw the fair word around, because you don't want to just imply that you're not being paid a fair wage at the moment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But just know that these are things, consistency and fairness, but like the consistency and the loyalty pieces that are important also to the phlegmatics are being able to have that conversation and say, hey, I know you want to maintain, you're growing a team here, and this is we want to keep this. I love this team, and I love being part of this team, right? And so the consistency, even on the team, is something that is going to translate to stability, right? As soon as somebody leaves, goodness gracious, not only is it expensive, but it is disruptive.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Which is kryptonite to the phlegmatic. They you do not like lots of disruptions.
Yeah. So like that, even just like, this is just make it easier to kind of make it easier, words like that. But I think even
simpler, how do we simplify this?
Consistency with the team is going to be something that's an important ideal, right?
Yeah.
Stability also. Okay.
Yep.
Ways to lessen those triggers, Aaron.
Well, what are their triggers?
Yeah.
Their triggers are, they don't really like people who are they don't like the people. They don't like when people are being dramatic, when things are not dramatic, or kind of, they're
overly emotional.
Phlegmatics
the
are very sob logical. Story, like they're just kind of like, just tell me what the facts are. It doesn't mean that they're not compassionate people. They just kind of want you to get to what it is that you want.
Be pragmatic.
Right. Just be pragmatic. They don't like things being made more difficult than they actually are. Like let's not overcomplicate this. Goes back to the tell me the facts. Let's not overcomplicate this. Like, tell me what the actual problem is, and then we can open up solutions. Yeah. Open up for some solutions.
Just know this, when you go and you're talking to the phlegmatic boss, you're having a conversation that has to do with whether or not you it's going to be naturally a disruptive conversation, disruptive to the budget, disruptive to potentially to the team, right? And so there's something that can be inherently triggering to the phlegmatic, and just being even finding, I mean, that's more leaning to ideal conditions here, but just know this, that these conversations can be something that's it's just a tough conversation. So even having a set time where you're not blindsiding this person, but you're giving them a real heads up, and you're making some very intentional time for the conversation.
Yes.
Is just a way for them to kind of get in the right headspace for this.
And also give them time after to make the decision. Once again, that's don't rush them through this process.
Yeah.
But you can ask them, similar to the melancholic, you can ask them hey, when you want to revisit this discussion, and they'll appreciate that.
Yep.
A lot. Okay. Don't make them do more work than they need to do. Very similar to the sanguine too, the sanguine approach, where it's come up with some solutions ahead of time, and just be hey, I've been thinking about this, and here's how I would like to create more value, or how I already have created more value. And so, yeah.
Great. Okay. And then just a clear goal, optimizing the ideal conditions here could be something like a clear goal, and unifying purpose that the team can really rally behind. Okay, so sharing how this raise is going to help you stay focused in the organization's mission.
I just yawned. Sorry about
Snoozer. Boring. It's boring. All right. Clear goals are not exciting to Aaron.
No.
But that's something. And so again, phlegmatics, they enjoy harmony. Harmony across a team requires that there's a shared mission that's there. So anytime that you can bring that shared mission into the conversation and show how this is going to somehow enhance the loyalty to that shared mission.
It's kind of like the reason why I'm bringing this up right now, like this is not comfortable for me to bring this up. I'm giving you like a literal script to use with the phlegmatic because it's my secondary. It's like, this is not easy for me to bring this up right now, but like I love, and once again, do not lie. If this is dishonest, don't say this.
It's not influencing, it's manipulation.
Yes.
At that point. Yeah.
But like I love working with this team, and here's why. And I want to stay here, and I want to help us maximize our efforts here. And here are some ways I would love to try out. And you don't have to do anything. I remember we had a boss. He was a priest up in New York. Very phlegmatic. Like probably the most phlegmatic person I've ever met. And I remember always like making like coming up with new things. And I was like, you don't have to do anything. Like you don't have to do a thing. All I need is your yes. And here's why I think this might work, you know? And that's how I would approach everything. Even when I did need him, I would say, the only thing you need to do is show up here at this time and do this. Do this one thing. Like it was just, it's like, yeah, minimize the amount of effort that they need to put into this.
Yeah, so doing that work up front, really asking the question, what can I do to create more value? What can I do to lower cost? Or even the work of what am I doing already that the boss is not aware of?
Yeah.
Right. That's something else. So it's not always that you have to create more or less. You know, at some point you just, it's been a while that you've been at the job. You've really grown in your capacity. You're doing more. The company's growing.
I would even say
it's like that's important for a boss to know everything that his employees are doing, is as soon as that person leaves, suddenly they find out then that they were doing all this other stuff. And it's like, crap, I could have just given them an extra, $5K or whatever. And like,
yeah, they're not mind readers. They don't really know what you're doing. Unless if you have a micromanager boss, which you don't want. By the way, going back to that example of that boss, he said yes all of the time. He said yes, because I just minimized all of his stuff, the stuff he had to do. Not all of the things that you do. You don't just give them a brag list of all the things that you do. Give them a brag list of why they have helped. Why they have helped grow the collective goal, like what it is that person wants, like why specifically this is helping you as a boss, why it's helping your company grow. Like I don't want a list of things that you do. Like the first thing I ask is, why are all these things useful? Or are we wasting time doing all of these things? Right. So tell me why it's useful of all the things that you're doing.
Yes. And especially if it's doing a bunch of things that your boss hates to do. Yes, even better. Even better. There's complementarity there. Okay.
It makes you that unicorn.
All right, we're wrapping up this conversation. So we again, the principles here are staying in that zone of influence. Zone of influence is the best way that you can change somebody's thoughts, feelings, and actions. Okay. And it's okay to desire to change somebody's thoughts, feelings, and actions. But we always want to honor their free will and their agency. And it's an invitation to do that. So we get both internal and external compliance with the things that we want and are good. Okay. And when we stay in that zone of influence, we also allow ourselves to be influenced here as well. So sometimes we're asking for something and we have this idea of what good is. And you know what? There's actually a greater good that we're not even considering. We need to be open. It's helpful to be open to receiving that as well. But again, following those principles of GLOW, right? G, find the common goal.
What do they want?
Yeah, what do they want? What's something both of you can agree on? John Paul II says, St. John Paul II, this is the foundation of a loving relationship. A common goal, both people will it together in their own freedom. All right. Second thing, L, lessen those trigger conditions. Those things that put people into a place of fear, have them shut down. They stop making their contributions, and they go into their place of weakness. All right. Just lessen those trigger conditions. And a way that you can do that is increasing the ideal conditions, optimizing, those ideal conditions. that allow them to show up and do what they do best and operate in that creativity or stabilizing or decisiveness, whatever their ideals are. And like optimizes their freedom, their agency. Cool.
That's it.
That's it.
Are we going to do another one of these next week?
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll play with it.
If not, we'll get back to our leadership series, and we're going to be talking about maximizing resources or optimizing resources.
Yeah.
And our next section.
Yes.
So.
And I'd love to hear if this has been helpful.
Yeah,
like this, because we're like, okay, so we can give you guys principles around influencing, but here we wanted to teach these principles of staying in the zone of influence, this glow, in the context of a goal, like a common goal that people are experiencing. If you want to see this applied to another common goal that's showing up in your life or problem or time where you're seeking to influence, then we can play with that. We can do another podcast that kind of gets into a particular scenario like we did here.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week.
Yes. And become who you are.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I think at this point,
our live event
is releasing. All right. I think this is going to be releasing right around Thanksgiving. All right. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. But know that on Black Friday, that's when our live event registration opens up. All right. And the early bird special that's going to be kicking off on Black Friday is going to be the best option in terms of getting your tickets. All right.
Yes.
So if you're ready to go, make sure you're looking at your inbox. There's going to be a lot of stuff flowing into your inbox on Black Friday. So make sure you look for our Metanoia Catholic email. But also know this, there's going to be some pricing incentives for showing up and purchasing in a pair, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to show up with your spouse, start having those conversations. You want somebody else you want through
coworker.
You want through certification with somebody, like show up there. We've got some limited
What are they
rooms.
getting? What are they getting from Become Who You Are?
They're going to be getting, so one of the big things that we're going to be doing is we're going to be developing in 2024 a mentorship training for temperaments.
Yes.
Okay. And so one of the things we realized, it's so important to have somebody that's skilled with the ability to walk somebody through discovering their unique design through the lens of their temperaments.
Boom.
And you're going to walk away with that mentorship designation from Metanoia Catholic. That means that you'll be able to take our temperaments workshop and deliver it wherever you want, whether it's in your family,
but also
have people do it in their homes.
Also, you get to walk with people one-on-one. It's not just the workshop, right? Like there's that mentorship, that really understanding somebody else and just walking with them. One of my favorite things about all of our trainings, and I think this is very much the Holy Spirit, how it's worked out, and really just how the human person works, is you have to go through it yourself first. And so at this live event, you will be receiving all of this stuff first and then equipped to go out and do it with other people. And that's really where the true transformation happens. If you haven't received it first, you're not going to be able to convince anybody to even go through it with you, and so that, I think, it's not just mentorship training, even though that's amazing that you're going to get that. You're going to be receiving this and being transformed in the process.
Yeah. And it's going to be like one part resort destination, one part retreat environment here as well. We've got an amazing band that's going to be coming in, praise and worship. That's going to be sharing, just helping us to enter in to the experience a little bit more. We're going to have time for Eucharistic adoration. We're going to have time for Mass. And I can't wait to just be out from behind the screens and with all of you guys here as well. And so you can be somebody that's never gone to any one of our programs before, or never even, shown up in the academy or anything, and like come to this event and just receive it. Or you can be somebody that's been a veteran. They've been with our stuff for a while. You're a certified coach, perhaps. Come to this event. This is a place for us to just get together and start to celebrate this community, because it's growing. This community is growing, expanding. Pumped.
All right, guys.
Want to be a part of it.
Thanks so much for sticking around and listening to us talk about that. Become Who You Are. You are not going to want to miss this event. All right.
Use these. And if it works for you, if you enter your next conversation with a raise, leave us a little comment below.
Yeah, that'd be so awesome. All right. Cool. God bless.
Bye. Hey, thanks for sticking with us in the Catholic Coaching Podcast. If you like what you heard,
please like and subscribe, and we'll see you again.